Hello and welcome to the Thursday episode of Stand Up. Today I will share my conversation with Dr. Aaron Carroll from Las Vegas last week from Podjam 2. That conversation begins at about 30 minutes into today's show. But first, I've got your headlines and your clips, so let's get to it. And if you're feeling dread, anger, confusion, a lot of confusion about what our idiot president is calling Liberation Day, then you are not alone. Yesterday, this dumb fuck imposed a 10% blanket tariff on all U.S. imports and steeper country-specific, quote, reciprocal tariffs on about 60 countries, bypassing Congress, invoked emergency powers to justify what he called, quote, economic independence. But really, it's a way to pay fealty to him, because if industries and companies get down on a knee and beg him and kiss the ring, then maybe he'll lift the tariffs. Also pretty interesting that he's tariffing like every country in the world but Russia? Lots to discuss, lots to talk about. But just 5 months ago, The Economist ran a special report on America's economy that it was the, quote, envy of the world. And yesterday, stock market futures plummeted after this idiot announced all these tariffs. His ridiculous, erratic, impulsive approach to the economy has already rattled markets, Heather Cox Richardson writes. They dropped significantly in the first quarter of this year in consumer confidence, which recently hit a 12-year low. Trump waited until the stock market closed yesterday before he announced the new tariffs. Then, in a speech in the White House Rose Garden, he said that for decades, our country has been looted, pillaged, raped, and plundered by nations near and far, both friend and foe alike. But it's not going to happen anymore. Instead, he said, tariffs would create a golden age in America. A golden age in America? We're all going to get pissed on. Maybe a golden shower. Former Treasury Secretary Lawrence Summers said, never before has an hour of presidential rhetoric cost so many people so much. The best estimate of the loss from tariff policy is now close to $30 trillion. Trillion, or $300,000 per family of four. The Trump tariff tax is the largest peacetime tax hike in U.S. history, said the former vice president, Trump's Mike Pence. He said the Trump tariff tax is the largest peacetime taxes increase in U.S. history. Economist Paul Krugman pointed out that the European Union places tariffs of less than 3% on average on U.S. goods, while Trump maintained tariffs are 39%. So, of course, he was lying about the whole reciprocal tariffs. Apparently, Trump just took our trade deficit with each country and divided it by the country's exports to us. No one can figure out exactly what the formula was, but then the Office of U.S. Trade Representative confirmed that was it. That's how they did it. Yesterday, J.P. Morgan said that they view the full implementation of these policies as a substantial macroeconomic shock not currently incorporated in our forecasts, and that these policies, if sustained, would likely push the U.S. and the global economy into recession this year. Economist Brad Setzer of the Council on Foreign Relations agreed with J.P. Morgan. He told David Lynch and Jeff Stein of the Washington Post, in the short run, the effect is probably a recession. It's going to raise the price of so many goods that can't be made in the United States. In the long run, it's a vision of the U.S. as very isolated from the world. But hold on, not every country got tariffed. While Trump imposed tariffs on Australia's remote herd in McDonald Islands, which are uninhabited except for by seals and penguins. And of course, like I said, tariffs did not make it to Russia. I can't imagine why that is. Yesterday, Senator Chris Murphy noted that the tariffs make no economic sense because they aren't designed as economic policy. The tariffs simply are a new, super dangerous political tool. Senator Murphy is suggesting they're a way to make private industry dependent on the president the same way he's tried to make law firms and universities dependent on him. Like I said, industries and companies will need to, quote, pledge loyalty to Trump in order to get sanctions relief. Senator Murphy says the tariffs are designed to create economic hardship so that Trump has a straight-face rationale for lifting them. Business by business, industry by industry, as he adjusts or grants relief, it's a win-win. The economy improves and dissent disappears. So that is one very interesting and insidious analysis as to what the motives are here. Josh Marshall of Talking Points Memo makes the important point that presidents have no inherent power over tariffs whatsoever. The Constitution gives that power to Congress, not the president. The power to impose tariffs is from Congress, except for the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, which allows the president to impose tariffs if he declares a national emergency under the National Emergency Act, which is exactly what Trump did yesterday. He declared a national emergency to, quote, increase our competitive edge, protect our sovereignty, and strengthen our national and economic security. But that same law allows Congress to end such a declaration of emergency. So far, of course, Republicans have declined to do that. Yesterday, the Senate rebuked Trump by passing a resolution to block his tariffs on Canadian products, with 4 Republicans, Susan Collins, Mitch McConnell, Lisa Murkowski, and Rand Paul, joining Democrats to pass the resolution. But House Speaker Mike Johnson is unlikely to take the measure up until the pain reaches a point of no return. Maybe, I don't know, maybe then Republicans in Congress will stand up to the president. But that remains to be seen, and hard to imagine at this point. So that's just a brief roundup here at the top of some of what experts are saying about the news yesterday. That is the big story. I'll bring you audio for it coming up in the clips. There are other news headlines yesterday, but that, of course, was the major one that is creating so much fear, anger, and confusion around what the hell is happening and going to happen to our economy. I am not hosting a hangout tonight because I am hosting Michael Ian Black in my district to shit on my Congressman Mike Lawler. So that should be really fun. That's tonight. But I will most likely host a hangout tomorrow, Friday at 8 p.m. So I hope to see you there on the 4th at 8 p.m. If you're a subscriber, you'll get a link and we will hang out. But now let's get to those other headlines that I've got for you today, including a once-in-a-generation storm, apparently. An atmospheric river is triggering flooding in the central U.S. that could become life-threatening and historic. Millions are at risk for tornadoes and flooding overnight. Up to 4 months worth of rain may fall in less than a week across part of the central United States, threatening major flooding, endangering lives and property, threatening a region from Texas to Michigan. By today, forecasters predict the same storm will stall, causing potentially significant flooding across the same area, particularly northeast Arkansas, western Tennessee, western Connecticut, Kentucky, and southern Indiana. So be careful. To all our friends out there, we're thinking of you. Hopefully won't be damage in your area. If there is and ever is, if you're a member of our community, we're here for you in all the ways that we can be. Let us know. If you're not in the Discord chat, that's a great place to share that kind of information and let us know what's happening wherever you live. Also, yesterday, a judge dropped charges against New York's Mayor Eric Adams. One could say bowing to Trump, but he also said the U.S. couldn't use the charges as leverage against the mayor. So the whole deal was that they were going to take the mayor of New York and say, we'll drop the charges, but you have to enforce our immigration policies and let ICE run amok in New York. But now they don't have that leverage. So at least that part is there. It's a little bit confusing for me, so I hope it was for you because I couldn't quite understand that ruling yesterday. Also, Amazon yesterday put a last-minute bid to buy TikTok, which has until Saturday to change ownership or face another ban in the U.S., so we're watching that closely, you TikTokers out there. Here's some good news. A large new study found that the shingles vaccine can reduce the risk of developing dementia, but then Trump gutted that study. Now, I don't know, but you might as well say he did because there's plenty of research that has been gutted as a result of this tyrant's authoritarian cuts. Yesterday was a real tough day for Elon Musk. Tesla announced that its global sales in the first quarter had fallen 13% from a year earlier. Wow. The decline came at a time when the EV sales were rising around the world, so it reflected potentially serious problems for Tesla, where in Sweden they spray painted Tesla dealerships, which I loved. Tesla's tepid sales were revealed just hours after Brad Schimmel, Musk's preferred candidate in a race for Wisconsin Supreme Court seat, lost to a liberal judge. Musk has spent more than $25 million to support Brad Schimmel, declared that the course of Western civilization was at stake, so maybe not. Also yesterday, former Cabinet Secretary Xavier Becerra announced a bid for California governor, potentially clashing with Kamala Harris. And our friend Mallory McMorrow, a state senator, a Democrat in Michigan, became the first prominent candidate to enter the U.S. Senate race. So Mallory McMorrow is running for U.S. Senate. That's real cool. We'll have to get around to talk about it. And the Trump administration laid off the entire staff of a program that helps millions of low-income Americans pay their utility bills. So that is a terrible, terrible story from yesterday that, like many others, is getting undercovered. But not here at Stand Up. That's why you listen, and that's why you pay for a subscription, I hope. Well, one of the reasons. And finally, the death toll from that earthquake in Myanmar has surpassed 3,000. Myanmar's military has declared a ceasefire in the country's civil war yesterday to facilitate relief efforts following the 7.7 magnitude earthquake. Senator Cory Booker on a victory lap after his 5-hour speech on the Senate floor. That's pretty cool. I've been liking hearing some of the things that he's been saying and the things that are being said about him. It's good to have a champion to root for in these times, at least for a minute. And Cory Booker is by no means a perfect senator. He's taken a lot of money from a lot of special interests and voted in their interests. So I don't want to forget that when we talk about reverence with this U.S. senator. I've interviewed him several times, but still, nobody's perfect. He said that, and this is the way our system unfortunately works. I'm not forgiving it, but right now we could use a champion is all I'm trying to say. And those are the news headlines that I've gathered for you today. Yeah, that's it. That's all I'm doing. And now let's get to the clips, the audio clips that I collected and want to share with you here on the Clip Show. A lot of you give me feedback that you really like this and look forward to it. Many of you, this is the only stop for you the whole day for news. And so I try to give you as comprehensive of stories and clips as I can. So let's get to it right now. All right, first I'm going to start with this report from CNBC. So they were live on CNBC yesterday afternoon or evening when Trump was in the Rose Garden signing these executive orders like a dipshit. And I just want to give you the audio of the CNBC commentators. You'll hear a little bit under their commentary of the actual signing. That's the sound you hear, but it's worth it because the analysis here by John Fort of CNBC at the end, I think, is pretty dramatic. And this is during our criminal president's signing and all his sycophants there in the Rose Garden, which he wants to fucking pave over. Excuse the language today. Anyway, here's the clip from CNBC.
It's President Trump at the Rose Garden at the White House. It looks like he is preparing to perhaps sign this executive order tied to this very sweeping policy that was just announced, what he called, quote, kind reciprocal tariffs, a baseline 10% tariff across the board on countries with the 60 worst offenders, tiered structure. So China, for example, including tariffs, currency manipulation, and trade barriers, charging a, quote, discounted 34% tariff. Layer that on top of a 20% existing tariff, you get to 54%. EU, 20%. Vietnam, 46%. Taiwan, 32%. We can go down the list here. Fentanyl tariffs on Canada and Mexico staying in place, with the exception of USMCA-compliant goods, and all of this going into effect at midnight tonight.
And the market reaction after hours, I've never seen anything like it. This, I think fair to say, is worse than the worst case scenario of the tariffs that many in the market expected the president to impose. You laid out a number of the percentages there. And there's some question of how the administration calculated the percentages that they're responding to in each of these cases. Are they adding in value-added taxes? He talked about, non-tariff barriers as well. So I think while many were hoping that this would eliminate uncertainty, there's going to be more uncertainty in the market. And from those watching policy tomorrow on, if countries push back on how these non-tariff barriers were calculated, will there be wiggle room here? Exactly when do these go into effect? How quickly are companies going to have to adjust their pricing? So many questions.
So many questions indeed, John Ford at CNBC. Now, here is a clip of the Secretary of Treasury, who, this guy sounds really just prostrate, just weak and completely spread-eagled for the president of the United States. So here he is talking to a friendly reporter, Brett Baer of Fox News, yesterday.
We showed the markets before, but if you saw the post-market reaction, it was kind of down across the board. People are looking at their 401ks, and they worry about it. What do you say to them tonight?
Brett, I say that what we are doing is we're setting the stage for long-term economic growth, that we were on our way to a financial crisis. I used to teach a history of financial crises, and with that gigantic government spending, it was unsustainable. You look back in 1998, you look back in 2007, right before it looked great, everything collapsed. So, it looked great right before everything collapsed. So we have taken us off that trajectory, and we are putting ourselves back onto a sound trajectory.
You said 10% over 10 years would be $2.5 trillion coming in. You look at this list of all these countries, and there's some policy decisions here. China is at 34%, added to the 20% already, so that's 54% on Chinese goods.
Yes.
Are they going to come back with something big?
Well, we'll see what they do. Is my advice to every country right now is do not retaliate, sit back, take it in, let's see how it goes, because if you retaliate, there will be escalation. If you don't retaliate, this is the high watermark.
Yeah, I'm sure all the rest of the world will just back right down to Donald Trump and your dumb tariffs. They're going to come together in a way that this country cannot. Every other country is going to be unified against us while we're fighting each other on Facebook. And so that's my prediction, at least. But there's more. There's more from this Treasury Secretary who apparently has no say in negotiations. And it sounds like no idea what's going on as he talks to now a reporter from Bloomberg.
Plans for conversations or a trip to Beijing?
Nothing imminent.
When it comes to this negotiation, April 9th, these tariffs come in place. Do you plan on having negotiations before that date?
Again, I'm not part of the negotiations, so we'll see. I am sure that there are going to be a lot of calls. I just don't know if there are going to be negotiations.
The president had this huge chart showing all of the different rates. Canada and Mexico notably missing on that chart. Why is that?
I'm not sure.
Not sure. Okay, I imagine that has to do potentially because they're already in negotiations previously with the 25%.
All right, there you go. Guy has no idea what the hell's going on, or that he maybe doesn't even know he is Treasury Secretary. Scott Bessent is his name. And now let's go to Hakeem Jeffries. He's the minority leader in the House. This is the way that he is positioning it, language that he is using to criticize Trump's irrational, irresponsible, terrible, no good moves on trade.
Tariffs are going to raise costs on everyday Americans in an environment where there's already a high cost of living. Trump promised that he would lower costs, in fact, on day one. But what we've seen under his reckless leadership is that costs aren't going down in America. They're going up. Inflation is going up. The stock market is going down. Consumer confidence is going down. And the retirement security of the American people is going down. This is not Liberation Day in America. It's Recession Day, because Donald Trump's reckless policies are driving us toward a painful recession.
Indeed, they are, according to pretty much every economist. Can you find any economist that supports these ideas? I mean, a lot of these ideas come from Trump's own brain, his fascination with President William McKinley, who was in office in 1897 to 1901. At a time when high tariffs concentrated wealth in the hands of industrialists, while workers and farmers, as well as their families, faced injury, hunger, homelessness from dangerous working conditions, low wages, and commodity prices, and seasonal factory closings. Again, Heather Cox Richardson referencing that. I mean, that's one way to understand it. The other way to understand it is to try to understand world trade in general, which is why I'm going to try to get a guest on the show to talk about world trade in the history of America's role in world trade. We buy and sell goods and services from other countries. How do we arrange those negotiations and those deals? That's the conversation I want to have with an expert. Kind of what did we get wrong in the past, back when, McKinley was president? How have we improved on that, made it more fair, more equitable, or less fair and less equitable? I mean, there's lots of obviously examples of that because, capitalism and power and leverage, trying to get the best deal that you possibly can for your country, especially the richest people in your country, because certainly not all of us have benefited or profited. Many people have obviously seen their jobs leave the country as a result of trade deals. So lots to talk about, lots to learn, and I'll try to get somebody on that can help us. If you've heard anybody, have any ideas, or you are that person, reach out, standupwithpete@gmail.com. Now back to the clips. All right, here's Senator Rand Paul, who warned yesterday that Trump's tariffs could result in the Republican Party being wiped out in both the House and Senate for decades.
Tariffs have also led to political decimation. When McKinley most famously put tariffs on in 1890, they lost 50% of their seats in the next election. When Hott and Smolley put on their tariff in the early 1930s, we lost the House and the Senate for 60 years. So they're not only bad economically, they're bad politically.
All right, there's Rand Paul. He's, of course, a Republican senator. But now let's head back to Fox News, where Laura Ingraham, whatever the hell her name is pronounced, she had the Trump economic advisor, Kevin Hassett, who gets everything wrong all the time and should have no credibility, no job anywhere. But he's that weird, smarmy, kind of friendly-sounding guy who talks nonsense about economics while the economy is getting destroyed. But I think it's worth playing because the way you hear him describe what the result is supposed to be. The result here is supposed to be that jobs are going to come back to the U.S., that we're going to start building stuff here again, which makes no sense because nothing is going to be built here again like that. A. B, manufacturing plants were being built as a result of the CHIPS and Science Act. They're building battery plants all over. And now some of those plants are being frozen because the money to them is being cut. So the manufacturing plants that were being built, many of them are being stopped as a result of this administration. And finally, if there was new factories being built in the U.S., it's going to take 3 to 5 years as a result of this trade war. So nobody's going to have anything left anyway. It's a ridiculous statement, but here is Kevin Hassett trying to convince Fox News viewers that that's going to be the result of it all. And that Donald Trump's economic intuitions are really the only thing that we should put our trust in.
Your response to that?
Look, the fact is that President Trump has been saying that he supports tariffs because he has the intuition of what we talked about, how those incomes are not gaining because we're losing the jobs abroad. He's been saying that for 40 years, and he just won a landslide election, really, in the U.S. So it's the idea that it's bad politics for tariffs. Well, the voters who voted for Trump should have heard that. And the bottom line is the reason it's good politics is people know what happened to their communities, just like you remember what it was like when we were growing up. And President Trump is going to fix it with this policy. It is absolutely an incredible day in the history of American economic history because we're finally stopping the trade war. It's not we're starting a trade war, we're stopping the trade war because we're going to once again build everything here in the U.S.
Such nonsense, such ridiculous nonsense. Now let's head over to CNN where Richard Quest, who is originally a finance and business reporter, now a host over at CNN. I used to work with, I like this guy. He's always fun. Here he is slamming this ridiculous idea of tariffs.
I'll give it to you first. I mean, there are a lot of things that were said today, but the idea of slapping willy-nilly, it seems, tariffs on basically the entire world will do what for the economy?
It will send it into reverse. Let there be no doubt about this. The president said today a whole load of economic nonsense, things that we know simply will not happen. He talks about it being great for the economy and it's going to boost growth. It will not. Look, I've studied this a million which ways upside down, and many of the people in that rose garden know it. The president conveniently forgot about the Payne-Aldrich Act of 1910. He ignored the Fort Macomber Act of 1910. He went straight through Smoot-Hawley. And then he gets to this nirvana where billions of dollars are going to come in. Where does he think these billions are coming from? They're coming from importers. importers will pay because they get something known as a customs schedule when the goods come off the boat. And that is an invoice, and the importer pays. And the importer passes it to the wholesaler. The wholesaler passes it to the distributor. The distributor, get your wallet out, passes it to you.
All right.
Wow, really well explained by Richard Quest. I appreciated that explanation. And now I've got something for you just a little bit different. This is a comedian, Bill Burr, who I've known a very long time, who I've had tremendous respect for in different arenas in his life, certainly as a stand-up comedian, but now more and more as a commentator who is understanding kind of, what's wrong with media, what's wrong with journalism to a certain extent. I certainly don't agree with Bill on a lot of things. I think he gets a lot of things wrong, glosses over stuff. But here he is yesterday on the red carpet. This was for Conan O'Brien at the launch of some show, or I don't know exactly what the event was, but I just love this 1 minute 15. Again, he's walking down the red carpet. It is a rope line of reporters, and the way that he tells us not to listen to comedians, the way that he doesn't take the bait for clips, I love it.
Tell us about your reaction to Luigi Mangione. I was reading up, that perhaps you've been supportive of what he did. What is your take on that?
If you were reading up, I don't think you read up on it. Because I said what I felt about it, and I said what a lot of people said.
Some people took it that way. So could you clarify what you think?
No, I'm not going to just have some controversial moment so you can get clicks. I'm not doing that.
I love that. I'm not going to have a controversial moment just so you can get clicks. No.
I'm here for Conan. I'm not doing all of this. What are you going to bring up next?
Oh, this is the Kennedy Center Mark Twain Prize. And now he just starts making hilarious jokes. What are you going to bring up next? The Middle East?
Middle East? I went to summer school 3 out of 4 years in high school. I'm not qualified to talk about this.
I was just
what do you think about global warming?
You said about Elon that he was ruining Earth, I saw on The View. You're critical of him. What do you think of all the boycotts, like even the violence?
I don't watch the news. I don't watch the news. I have no idea what's going on. I watch Instagram. I watch people wipe out on motorcycles. I watch lions and hyenas fight each other. This is the things that I do. And I don't think you should be asking a comedian. You're a journalist.
Comedians are on top of current events.
No.
Comedians are on top of current events? Well, we're not analysts and experts on...
No, that's weak. That's you guys passing the buck. You guys need to have balls again, which you don't. You guys always goes, should we be thinking this? Duh. You guys present stuff like that. You guys used to have balls. You need to get your balls back. And it's not my job. I am a dancing clown.
Yes. So when he says that, I kind of feel bad for that one specific reporter, but we don't know who that was because he's back to us. But when he says that you need to have balls, this is what you need to do. You need to start asking experts questions. That's why I'm a comedian who asks experts questions. I give you a little bit of my take on things, but it is based on the experts that I read in interview. I am not an expert, so I reach out to very smart people who are, like today's guest, Aaron Carroll, and the vast majority of our guests on the show who absolutely know what they're talking about, where I still don't pretend to, for the most part, on most things. All right. I love that from Bill Burr. And now I am going to get to my interview with one of those experts, Aaron Carroll from Podjam. But first, I want to continue to read and share people's recollections from Podjam. Like many of you, I am still there because it was a respite to a certain extent, a break from the madness. And so many people had such an amazing time. And I was so gratified that you did. And many of you have asked to share your experience with me. And now I want to share what our friend Mindy Cunningham, who really did a lot to make this happen with a very generous donation to fund the entire event. Mindy wrote about Podjam 2. Still haven't come off the high from this weekend. I could give you a million reasons why, but I'm going to try to be precise. I went into the first day with great anxiety. After listening to most of this community on our Zoom hangouts, it felt like I was less than. I wasn't smart enough to be heard. I wasn't funny enough to participate. I wasn't pretty enough to be seen. Throughout the next couple of days, my insecurities faded. I learned very quickly that, from the great words of Kim Nyborg, the stand-up Pete Dominic community gave 0 fucks. I could fit in no matter any of it. Everyone has so much to offer in their own unique way. They made me feel seen and gave me the feeling of being enough. I will be forever grateful to you, Pete, for what you've built and for just being you. Oh, Mindy. And I will be to you. We all should be to you. You're a really special person in so many ways, a unique person in so many ways. I've really enjoyed getting to know you over the years, and I cannot thank you enough for your support for Podjam and throughout my time doing this program. You've been around for a while, and I always look forward to seeing you and hope to see you soon. Thank you, Mindy, and thank you to everybody who sent in your testimonials to me, standupwithpete@gmail.com. If you weren't there, I hope that you'll be at our next hangout or live gathering, and we'll be doing a hangout tomorrow night, and hopefully at sometime at the end of August we'll be meeting in central New York, just outside Syracuse, at Kevin Richburg's farm. We're trying to figure out what that'll be like and entail right now. But let's go back to Las Vegas and Podjam, where we had Dr. Aaron Carroll for the day, and he hung out with us the night before. It was really great to have him joining me out there. It really meant a lot to me. His wife, Amy, came. We had a great conversation. Unfortunately, again, the audience wasn't mic'd. I won't make that mistake again. But we had our great friend, Dr. Terry Ashby, the dentist, in the audience. A question was asked by Susie Haveman about dental floss, and Aaron and Dr. Ashby got into it a little bit in terms of a debate, discussion, and argument about the research and science on flossing. I had to cut out Terry's comments. Well, they weren't there. There's no audio at all when she's talking. So hopefully you can follow through that. And we'll obviously love to hear from Dr. Terry and all other experts. Anybody who wants to challenge Aaron on any of this, you're always welcome to. But hopefully you get a lot out of this listening experience. All the questions that were asked were off mic, so you can't hear them. And I know that might be annoying. So hopefully it is worth it. Right now is my conversation with the president now of AcademyHealth, an expert on health research, how it's done. Of course, the author of several books debunking myths about your body and your health. You can watch his excellent award-winning YouTube channel, Healthcare Triage. And here we go. From Podjam, it's Dr. Aaron Carroll, one of our favorites. Please welcome Dr. Aaron Carroll, everybody. Dr. Aaron Carroll. Yes. And then after that, we'll bring up the ladies of the hue. Maybe we'll take a quick break. And but first of all, again, I just want to say to you, there was some kind of a poll or question asked: who would you like of the regular guests on the show? Who would you like to have join us in person? And you and Eric were the top two people. And I know it's not easy for you to get here, and specifically for you and Eric as well. But given the fact that you're running this new organization and we are in just a kind of chaos that I can't possibly imagine, I would have not blamed you for canceling because your work is so important, but I'm glad that you and your wife Amy came, and so thankful that you made it, and so is everybody else. And more importantly, for all of the years that you've joined us and the hundreds and hundreds of appearances, always unpaid, always amazing, always patient, and always so generous to me and everybody. On behalf of everybody, we're so happy that you're here, and I'm so happy you're sitting next to me, and I wish you would have gotten dressed up, but I understand.
Button-down shirt.
Also, the thing that I despise about Aaron, and every comic knows this, is like you can't really get under his skin. So no matter what I've ever said, I've had some of my greatest slams, and he just stares at me, and he just basically is like, I don't care what you think. And I try to be more like that. I will never be like that. But he's like, why would I possibly care what you think about my fetid pajamas? And then he walked off in a storm cloud. So anyway, thank you for being here. Yeah. I'm very happy to have you here. And let's get started with the kind of work our way backwards, I guess, the latest news. What happened yesterday? What was the announcement? I'm sure you're anticipating it. Or maybe and talk a little bit about AcademyHealth, where you left Indiana University for this amazing new job. Then Trump gets elected, and you're doing a bit of a different job. We talked about this in your last appearance, maybe than what you thought. And yesterday you learned that there was going to be 10,000 cuts at least at HHS, and for some reason that's bad.
So we started hearing warnings a couple of weeks ago that there was going to be a major shift of a lot of employees in HHS, that they were going to try to get rid of ARC, SAMHSA, HRSA, AFC, ONC. A lot of these things won't mean anything, but there are a lot of the sort of researchy organizations that focus on what we would consider sort of more policy-related areas or health services-related areas, or on things that aren't like drugs or devices. And from what we gather, sort of DOGE arrived and immediately tried to get things going, and everybody went into a tailspin. And we tried we went into action to try to see what we could do to halt that. And it was supposed to happen on a Friday, and it didn't. All like, what happened? And so we fought all weekend, and over time, it didn't really happen. But now there's a new thought that a lot of the restructuring was just waiting along until the FDA head and the NIH head were both confirmed, which happened yesterday. And then almost immediately, HHS announced that they were going to fire about another 10,000 employees. They have about 80,000. 10,000 have already left. Firing another 10,000 would obviously be huge. And it's not just the people, of course. It's what happens to all these organizations, and they're talking about merging ARC into something else and moving all these things around. But there are no details, and so it's impossible to – you're like fighting a phantom. Like you just don't know.
The people that are making the cuts have no idea what they're doing, and the people that should know why that matters, like I think you told me Republican senators or like anybody else.
I just think that, very few people are actually in the room. There's not a sense that Congress is terribly involved with what is going on at the moment, and that there's not a lot of input and from, I'd say, Republican senators or House representatives into what is happening. So a lot of this is being directed by a very small group of people, either in DOGE or the White House.
So if you played devil's advocate or fascist advocate, and you really didn't like government, and there's an argument to be made about bureaucracy and waste and fraud and abuse, and then you say, well, we're only cutting 10,000 employees from HHS, and there's a total of
80,000.
80,000. And so there's going to be 70,000 less. And so what could go wrong?
Everything. Because you have a very inefficient, broken system that's barely staffed to begin with. And when you just start firing the people without changing how the thing works, then you've just left fewer people around to try to work this machine, which already doesn't work well. And there's a lot of stuff people depend on in government. Or on the government, depend on the government for. And if those things stop working well, it'll be a real problem. And you've now eliminated just the people. And ironically enough, firing probationary people, which is what they did before, most of them were probationary because they'd just been promoted. So that means you got rid of some of your best. And in addition, people who can go and snap up jobs elsewhere are more likely to take you up on that offer. So it's a very inefficient way to shrink the size of the federal government in the sense that you're making everything more difficult. And there's a lot of really important services that go on that people do depend on. And just hack and slash on the whole thing is not going to get you where you want to be.
Can I try to describe what I think the federal government does vis-a-vis health care, which is it provides insurance and money for research? Is that most of what it does?
Yeah.
Medicare, Medicaid, and NIH and funding for research.
So it depends what you mean by like a money. Are you asking me like how much money they spend?
What is the federal government? What is Health and Human Services if not Medicaid, Medicare?
I mean, I can't remember who first said it, but basically it's like a health insurance company with a military.
Klein.
Something like, I don't think it was Ezra.
He probably said it after he heard you say it.
I definitely
Ezra Klein
didn't.
saw a lot of early Aaron Carroll stuff without attribution, is my opinion.
That's not. Okay.
I think it is.
Okay.
You're way smarter than Ezra Klein.
Okay.
I like you more, too.
Thank you.
You're more handsome.
Thank you. Are you done? I think, what is the government? I mean, look, it's only like $60 billion of research. In terms of what the government spends, it's a rounding error. It's like infinitesimal. But there's a good argument to be made that that's some of the best $60 billion the United States has spent in the last 50 years. It is, set us forward in so many ways in terms of science discoveries, health discoveries, advances that have been made. It's an amount of money that cannot be put together by any private organizations nor any other conglomeration of countries on the face of the earth. Like, we're the only ones probably who can, and we did. and it completely set us apart. And it's not a huge part of our spending, but it's a huge part of what made the United States great. I wouldn't argue the same thing about our health insurance spending, which again is like what? Trillions of dollars, for which I'd argue all the time. It's inefficient, doesn't get us what we want. It's not providing the access that you need. The quality is reasonably suboptimal. And the cost is through the roof. Like we could do so much of a better job, but people depend on it every day, and radically cutting that or making it much harder for that to work is going to be felt by Americans quickly.
I miss, the days when we could talk more about all kinds of different issues that you're an expert on and have done research on and supported research on, like health outcomes or nutrition or all the things you've covered on your awesome YouTube channel. And I do want to get to some of those. And again, if anybody has any questions for Aaron, everybody always has. No person in my life have I gotten more emails. Could you ask Aaron this? And then they just send an image of a mole. I'm like, I can't. And no more milk will come out no matter how times you press that. Rachel, stop emailing me. You'll get. I think he said it doesn't work.
The answer is no.
The answer is no. But I also feel like having you here and having access to you, it almost feels like the most important stuff right now is what's going to happen today or tomorrow. And I would think, and I don't want to speak for anybody, but like to our health insurance, it feels like the most prominent questions you get, we're hearing is like, what's going to happen to my Medicaid or my Medicare or my subsidized insurance through Obamacare, which is basically Medicaid. And the other one I think I hear the most is, are we going to have no more great research that we've always had at universities across the country? Like, what does this mean for, and we talked a little bit about this, I think the last time you were on the show, but like you can't stop a research project in the middle of the project on Alzheimer's and then restart it. You lose everything and so on. So are the biggest concerns about my health insurance tomorrow, my healthcare tomorrow being just gone, at least access to it, much less affordability and quality, which we've always.
So this is when I will detour from Eric. And I never want people to take what I'm about to say as a reason to not be concerned or to
hold it up just so it gets the
I don't
thing.
want to.
I know, but the thing picks up.
No, I don't like
I'm
it.
sorry, everybody.
No,
We're doing a thing. I should have had a Madonna mic. Go ahead.
You would think that somebody with a podcast would know how this stuff works, but anyway.
Well, if only one were here.
So I'm very concerned with what's going on, but I'm also not despondent, and I'm not losing my mind that like this is the end of days, because it's like when I first came on your show
and like Obamacare
2009. Yeah. I mean, I don't know how many of you were listening then, but it would just be phone call after phone call of people screaming at me, angry beyond belief at the tyranny and, how terrible this was going to be. And then you bring on other guests who would also scream at me, and who were so angry. And it just felt like this is the worst that it's ever been. And that was literally just to pass the Affordable Care Act. And then the Tea Party thing came down after that. And it was just so much anger and screaming. And everyone was like, this is going to be the worst. It's never going to get any better. And I felt that way when people were screaming that way during George W. Bush's presidency. And I don't know. I just feel that a lot of this stuff, regardless of the politics, comes down to, are we going to people want to be healthier and they want more. And it's like the government can declare they don't like health data and evidence, but hospitals still do. People still do. Insurance companies still will. Pharmaceutical companies still will. Everyone else in the world still will. And this too likely shall pass. And we'll move on. Now, will there be huge damage done? Will this set us back? Yep. No question. But other countries don't have this level of insurance. This level of research. Maybe they will start to step up. Maybe philanthropies who can be incredibly tight-fisted with and what they will support and keep looking for quick wins will, refigure out what they want to do and how they need to get together to have more progress. Maybe we'll start to get more efficient in how we set up and conduct and approve research so that we can actually make a difference instead of keep pointing out problems, which is something the research field does all the time. I think in the end, it's going to be bad. And then I think it's going to come back. And I think that we have to keep hope and we have to keep struggling against all of it because that's the only way it's going to change. I agree. The courts are not going to save us. The proper remedy for an administration, an executive branch that's out of control is not the courts, it's impeachment. We all know that's very unlikely to occur, in which case it's up to the people. So I agree the courts are not going to save us. I don't have much faith that politicians will save us, but I have a fairly decent amount of faith that people eventually will save us. Because when it starts biting them, and a real change in Medicaid would affect a lot of people, a real change in ability to access. If rural hospitals start closing, people are going to get angry. If the economy tanks, people are going to get angry. A lot of those things are happening. Eventually, like they did with the Tea Party, people are going to get angry. And it's going to be hard and everything else, but we've been through this and difficult times before, and we got to keep fighting for what we all believe in. We had a civil war.
We didn't.
Well, the country did. And it's like, when we talk about how our state's going to get along after this, there was a civil war.
Those people were hardened and didn't have like fucking vaccines. We have bacon as much as we want. Like life is good. So when it gets difficult, it's like when you say we've been through this before, I'm like, I haven't. My life has been pretty easy.
Really? I mean, but we had a massive recession. We've had, during the Tea Party, it got pretty angry. We have definitely had rises in political violence. We had a lot of protests. We've had difficult times. I'm not in any way suggesting that this is the worst. It's, that this is not bad.
Yeah, fair enough.
I don't want to say that. I want people to hear that. Like, I'm not minimizing the pain of what's going on, but it is too easy to pull up the bridges and put up moats and, want to be validated for how difficult things are for each of us at the moment. But it's like lots and lots of people are affected by all of these things. And for a better world, we have to keep fighting.
I like that. I like that message a lot better than Eric's.
He's closer to retirement than I am.
He said you're closer to retirement than he is, and it's hilarious that you didn't hear that statement. That joke went two ways accidentally. You wouldn't have done it. I would have. Here's the other thing about my relationship with you, and I suspect a lot of people who've listened to you for years. I have had so many serious arguments and fights with the people closest to me because of what you said. To the point where people that know me have said lots of times, don't tell me, Aaron Carroll says, who is this guy? And I'm like, he's a researcher. He knows research. He does research. You don't. You don't do research. I don't do research. To be more specific, we spend, and I think I know your answer is here on this, and I would suspect people have questions about this. Everybody in this room buys a product or a supplement or a cream or something that probably doesn't do anything.
Oh, it definitely doesn't do anything.
But I feel like your nuanced take on this is if people think it does, and let them think it does something.
Yes.
And so, but at the same time, I feel like, well, why you're spending a lot of money on this powder or that cream or that supplement that likely does not do anything. And you could look up the scientific consensus on this bullshit that's being, peddled to you and find out and save the money. And so how should I approach that with people that I care about or even on the show or publicly when I'm talking about it, like, I feel you locked and loaded, but like, don't you don't know shit.
I've said this.
It's like my other doctor friend F2. He says, I'm done with these anti-vax people because the guy says to me, he's a pediatrician, it's time to vaccinate your kids. And he's like, well, I'm going to do my research. And my friend goes, oh yeah. Are you a doctor? Like, what do you know? What do you know? Nothing. You know, nothing.
I love you, but you so badly need to be right. Like you must conquer other people in a way that I'm
trying to help you save money.
Yes, but again, that would be like saying, look, you're drinking that bourbon. that bourbon does nothing to make you healthier.
It does too. It makes you feel,
provides you joy.
Right.
And it's worth spending money sometimes on things that provide you joy. If someone's going out and getting acupuncture and it gives them joy and they can afford it, what the fuck do I
thought
care?
acupuncture had scientific consensus.
Yeah, well, it does for like some kind of things, but people use it for all kinds of stuff where it doesn't. And so regardless, there's so many times where why do I need to yuck your yum? If it doesn't cost me money and it costs you money and you're perfectly fine spending it for the joy that you get out of it, that's fantastic. Now, where I will wade in is if you start asking me to pay for it through insurance, then yes, I'm going to fight. Because I'm like, no. There's only if we're all pooling money together, I think we should agree that we should only be spending that money on stuff that we all agree actually works.
Got it. Well, that's a good
fine.
Yeah.
The second is that if I think you're actually being harmed by it, I will wade in. And if I think you're being harmed financially for it, and I have had this come up where it's like, I don't think you can afford the acupuncture and you're asking me, I will absolutely lay it all out for you. And if I think that there are harms in the sense that some people are using supplements that actually have crap in them that are going to hurt you, yes, I will say. But I have no interest in trying to whack-a-mole everyone's personal choices if they're happy and they can
fair
afford
enough.
it. Yeah.
But first of all, two things. One, I've always loved that you've couched your criticisms in compliments. That feels good because I see it coming.
That would be I love you to start.
I know. I heard it. And second of all, you taught me the phrase, would you rather be happy or right?
Do you want to be right or do you want to be happy?
I mean, it's almost the same thing.
It's not the same thing.
Do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? And I remember when you first told me that, and I go, right, duh. What are you talking about? How is that?
Explains all of your anger.
Yes. Yes, it does. And I'm not. And I've tried to change.
What's the point?
Ego.
What do you gain from that?
Nothing.
Right.
No. Wreckage, mostly.
Yeah, but see, this is the thing. I think that so many people, and this is not just you, so many people want to win. They want to squish their opponents into the ground.
Yeah.
And that has become, the two sides pick, and it doesn't even matter what we're discussing. People take a side and they fight it to the death. Yep. And they want to watch TikToks and read tweets that validate their feelings and the idiocy of others. And no one changes their mind based on that. No one makes an alteration to their beliefs or their behavior. And we all profess to want a better world where other people are making better choices and thinking in different ways, and we want to change, and we do everything in our power to make sure that never happens and that we humiliate them instead. Yeah. And that we validate us and that you will change nothing.
I disagree. So, no, I fully agree with what you're saying.
I accepted your disagreement. Okay, fine. I know I'm right.
Actually did it in the moment.
I don't need you to validate me.
But that's the thing about you. You are one of the smartest people about so many things, and yet you don't need to do what I need to do with the knowledge that you taught me. So, all right, put the therapy aside. We can talk about that later over drinks. Let's do a quick lightning round where you and Eric, and the whole idea of my show has always been invite smart experts on to have thoughtful, nuanced conversations that aren't some of what you just said, binaries.
And then let the random public call up and scream at them as much as they can.
You were so good at it. You were so patient as opposed to like your Bartletts and who you turned me out to, actually. Bruce Bartlett. Yeah. But anyway, all right. So the point is, nuance and detail matter for all of the people who join me on the show. That's why I have these long conversations. That's how real life is. You talk to a smart person about what they know. Let's throw all that out and do a lightning round. Okay. Probiotics.
All right. So the research shows that if you have just been on antibiotics in such a way that it causes diarrhea, then taking probiotics may shorten that period of diarrhea and get you back to health more quickly than if you did not take the probiotics. Short of that, feel free, but
the conversations, the billions of views on the videos about gut health, nonsense, not waste of time. I'm taking probiotics for my gut health. Shut up, stupid.
Interesting line for future research. literally nothing has been proven yet. And there's tons of just rational thought that makes that make no sense. So, yeah, I mean, the idea that gut health is probably related to the rest of your health, I'm sure that is true in some way. Do we understand that at all? Absolutely not.
Okay. Does anybody else want to shout out something, a quick one for Aaron to debunk her takes? Is it Susie? I can't see anything. Well, hold on. She's going first, then the microphone to person, which is, yes.
Aaron.
Yeah, can you pass that mic over so I can get it on?
I think it's just so people online can hear.
Yeah, well, I'm also recording it to share it for other people that aren't here, aren't so lucky to be here in this unbelievable place. Go ahead, Susie. She's a dentist. Uh-oh.
I don't think that's actually what I said, so I will say what I said, but go ahead.
Okay, what did you... the question is about the effectiveness of floss.
Yeah.
I think of that. I think of him when I'm showering.
There's no conclusive evidence that flossing will prevent cavities, which is what most people are doing.
And you disagree with this? Wow. The dentists disagree. We have a real dispat.
It's there. I will die on this hill because it's there have been randomized controlled trials.
Class 2 carries. I can't hear you but I do want to hear
this. But the act of advising flossing doesn't make a terrible difference. Yeah. Well, no, wait. You can't randomize controlled trial people to actually flossing. It doesn't matter. Yeah.
Two?
Removes the streptococcus. Yeah. See, that's a process.
Terry's a dentist.
I'm not arguing. This will change nothing of what I said. So I don't dispute anything you said, but we have a process measure of, we know that streptococcus is bad. We know that flossing reduces streptococcus. The problem is then making the leap that, therefore, flossing reduces cavities. That needs to be proven, and no study has proven that. Why not? Why not? It can be proven. You can prove that. There actually have been studies where they've tried and they've monitored and they've done it, and it hasn't made a significant difference. Now, you could argue, well, you need millions of people in the study to do it. But then I'd argue, well, if you need millions of the people to study, then this is, by the way, my life because of you.
Well, to be fair, because of Susie.
Everyone loves me until I talk about their specific area. All
right, well, hold on. That's hilarious. We're moving on.
When I write about something at the heart, the cardiologists yell at me.
No matter what you're talking about, the expert. Yes, go ahead. Is there a question over here? Mushroom coffee.
If you like it, then you should drink it.
Was there a question or just health benefits to mushroom coffee that you know of?
This is where I almost want to be what do you think the benefits of mushroom coffee are? I don't either. I'm just curious who woke up and went, you know what? Mushroom coffee will solve what? What are we trying to solve?
Was there another one over there?
No, the answer is no. It's again, if you like it, feel free. I don't want to yuck your yum, but it's but no.
Eric?
Okay, look, there's
stress. So your question is the correlation between stress and...
Because human beings are wired to want to have good stories that explain why the world works.
Ooh, good answer.
So, the ancient Greeks had myths. They said, why is there winter? Oh, because, Persephone, the daughter of Ceres, was abducted by Hades, and then she ate 6 pomegranate seeds, and therefore we have to have 6 months of winter and 6 months of summer. Okay.
Is that true?
No.
I don't know.
It was a widely held belief until, someone got the telescope and they're like, no, it has to do with the rotation. And then people were under the impression, we must be close to the Earth, to the sun when, it's summer. No, it's actually just the tilt of the Earth. But you could say why did they all say, because that's the best they had at the time. And so the problem is that and without insulting, and I really want to not get in a fight here, people will say with absolute authority things that they see and believe about bacteria and teeth because it explains the world and it is what they have seen and they are 100% sure they are correct.
For 36 years.
Yes, and they are sure of it and they mean well. And so, look, all disease, all problems, and all the fixes for that matter. It is not like a one-to-one. It's not pure biologic. It's not pure placebo. It's not pure mental, but it is all wrapped up together. And so in every study, when you do placebo-controlled trials, some people get better without the treatment. Why? We have no idea. Some people get sick with treatment, but we're happy when some greater than zero number go from sick to healthy because of the treatment than not. Is it ever 100%? Never. Like the number needed to treat on so many drugs we take every day is still like 1,000, meaning 999 people get no benefit, one does. It's just to say, like, there's a whole thing we don't understand. It is absolutely clear that under times of absolute stress, some people will have stomach aches. Some people will vomit. Some people will have, like, crippling butterflies in your stomach. I mean, that's where it all comes from. It's real. I will never deny that. That doesn't mean that all belly pain is stress related. It also doesn't mean that all stress leads to belly pain. But there's some kind of linkage where stress can lead to belly pain. And because of that, because it can, physicians were like, oh, well, I've got an answer now. And not only that, I've got an answer which I can lay entirely at your feet and blame you for. And so I'm blameless now. No, and that's because that's why we tell people to floss. Because then we can blame them for something we know. They're like, might not. We think it works. We have some evidence, and now we can say, oh, you didn't floss. It's your fault.
Since it got a little awkward and weird, I'm going to make it worse. There's some people in this room that think that you have to wash your legs. And then there's other people, and then
who are we talking about?
They're about to be up here. Okay. But then there's some people who think that you should shower a lot of times or use this soap or that soap to get clean. But to be specific, to be clear, when I wash, which happens, I let the soap, and so do a lot of whites, go down my legs, and I don't, and so I'll rub with my hands a little bit, like a bar of soap. Yeah. I don't use a washcloth, and I don't really, sometimes I don't even touch it. I just let the soap, my legs don't feel dirty, and I don't think that it's really that important.
This is when I'm going to validate you. Why? What level of cleanliness do you need?
Well, clearly anybody who's met me, it's about a 6.
Okay. No, I'm just saying that's probably enough.
It's a personal preference.
It's probably enough. For what? Does it mean like you have made yourself completely decontaminated of no, but it's probably enough because for the most part, again, we're all evolved from animals, and animals are not taking showers every day. They just don't do that. They just get by.
So what is your hygiene in the shower? What kind of soap, and do you use a washcloth or a sponge of some sort? Do you use body wash, bar of soap, sponge?
I definitely use soap, but not a washcloth. No.
Do you use your hands?
Yes. No, I said I do use soap. But I want to get back to, I still want to finish your question. Oh. Yeah, there probably was some, but the idea that they blamed you entirely for the belly pain is ridiculous. That is not, but again, doctors do this all the time. Where you have to recognize that the vast majority of what we tell you to do has a very small effect. Now, once in a while, that's absolutely not true. Sometimes it's like, oh, you have an asthma attack. I mean, absolutely albuterol. You'd be a fool not to. You're having an allergic attack. Absolutely an epinephrine. It's you got it. There's no question. It works like a charm. You got to have it. But most of what we do, it's a small effect that we overplay. And we will often guilt you if you don't do it. And so,
it's not a fair question.
Because I have been steeped in the idea that the vast majority of what we recommend and do has a much smaller effect than everyone assumes. And therefore, there's a lot more personal preference and choice at an individual level. Now that goes out the window when we're talking about societal level and which is a lot of other, but so I know even in clinic, the stuff that I'm advising on a one-on-one level, doesn't have a huge effect. And so if people want to discuss it or argue with me, I'll let it go most of the time because I'm like, okay, look, I get it. I'm telling you this will make it slightly better. If not, let's try something else. That might make it slightly better. But it's not like do this or you're just going to suffer. But that's most people who practice clinically don't have that mindset. And they also, if they get trained, you have to also recognize the vast majority of people get for most things, get better on their own. Like, just do. Like, they come to you and they're like, they got a cold, they got a virus, they got the vast majority. Evolution worked. Like, we get better from a lot of stuff. Now, just talking about cancer, no. But I'm a primary care pediatrician. Like, you're going to get better from anything. So if I get into a routine where I'm recommending the same things over time and I see everyone get better, I start to believe what I'm doing matters. Like, I'm killing it. Like, and you better listen to me because I've got proof. I have 26 years of practice. I know.
36.
I know. And again, I don't fault it because it probably does steer people there. But I'm personally just not. I know most stuff doesn't have the impact that we think it does, which is why I get incredibly passionate about the few things that do.
Like Ozempic.
Well, yeah.
And
if I'm going to be honest,
antidepressants.
I think that like there are things out there which are, I think the new GLP-1 drugs are game changing and will, in a decade or two have made an enormous impact. Yeah. But I also know that you got to be willing to take it and do it. And some people aren't there, and I get it. And that's okay. And some people will find, benefit going a completely different route, and that's okay too. I'm not going to proselytize or tell you that you have to do it this way or it's wrong, but I'm more than happy to discuss the alternatives. I want to stop questions.
Yeah, lightning round. Yeah, Rhonda, is that Rhonda? That mic is not working. Maybe hold it right up to your mouth. Don't touch your mouth because other people might have. But yeah, hold it and talk. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, everybody did. I gave COVID to everybody. Everybody got a T-shirt and a pathogen. Go ahead. About doing research, and that's a good question. Just about how any of us do research.
So you have to recognize.
I just call you.
There will be no research on this because the number of people who had massive, rapid weight loss before these drugs came along could probably be, counted on one hand. It feels like it's so hard and so rare. There just haven't been enough interest or people to do good research yet. So anyone promoting anything at the moment is out on a limb. Now, you can make an argument that, well, this is something we should start researching and that we should figure out how to do that. But it's not going to, it's going to be hard to fund because let's own that most people who probably have this concern, it's not, I want to say this the right way. It's not like life threatening. And so it's just not going to be I'm amazed all the time. I see people that are like, why don't they do head to head of which moisturizer works correct? And I'm like, if you're worrying about which moisturizer works correct, your life's pretty good.
What's moisturizer?
Yeah. Well, there you go. But it's like we won't have those kinds of head to head studies just because no one's going to fund them and there's really no interest in it. Now, eventually, maybe enough people will have lost enough weight that figuring out what to do with excess skin will become a prevalent enough problem that it'll rise to the level of investing in research, but we're nowhere near that yet.
You wrote, just real quick, I think somebody else had a question, but you wrote the Bad Food Bible how many years ago?
Published in 2019.
Would you change anything in that book?
Nope.
Everybody should get that book. It's a game changer for eating. We talked a lot and watch your YouTube videos, of course, as well about nutrition and eating and we all have these lifelong feelings about anything from eggs to cholesterol to salt to
I don't think there's
meat.
been any actual research done in the last, say, 6 years that would make me backtrack on anything.
Interesting. Okay, so buy the book. Chris, or who is it first? Bonnie and then Chris. Does the mic yeah, go ahead.
So
will you accompany?
So yes, this is when people talk about concierge medicine. This is, I think, what many people are just looking for. They just want to be able to have an actual discussion and do it. And I also think that in an ideal world, no one would ever go to a doctor's appointment alone. But for a period of time, one of my really good friends had cancer. I would go with him to his visits because I knew as soon as he got into the office, all he heard was bah, bah, bah. He wasn't processing anything. Neither was his wife. And plus, I wanted to make sure that his doctor, who is a very widely respected oncologist, was not spewing garbage. And I could tell that that the doctor was uncomfortable. He kept being why are you here? Because he knew me, who I was in the university. And I'm I'm here to, just help Jim and everything else. But yeah. But I will also say I chose a doctor who is also a minimalist where, they get my cholesterol every year. My cholesterol is slightly high, but you run the Framingham numbers and you plug in my cholesterol and the rest of my life, and my risk of heart disease is still so low. I'm not on a statin. I'm like the only person I know not on a statin. But the research would tell you I should not be on a statin. So find a doctor who does that if you can.
Chris, she wants to take you. She has a private jet for you. You should know.
Then we might be able to talk.
Yeah.
So my good friend lives across the street. He's the dean of the School of Public Health in Indy. And he is absolutely keto diet, and he'll proselytize about it. And I've tried it and it did not work for me. And I think it's a perfectly valid way to eat and lose weight if it works for you. I think it's great. And I'm not going to talk you out of it at all. It clearly works for you. I think there's as much evidence behind it as any other diet that exists. It just doesn't work for a ton of people. And so great. And I encourage other people to try it. But when it doesn't work for them, don't despair. It doesn't work for everybody. Look, and if it works for you, great.
Are you pro or con measles, by the way?
Well,
where are you on measles?
Who has it?
Several of us.
Well, I'm saying, but it's like, well, maybe I'd be more pro.
If it's me, you're pro.
Right. Yes, there
bastard.
You go. Well, no, you're probably immunized, so it wouldn't matter. I'm anti-me. Come on.
Why did you just look at my hair loss issue? You looked up at my bald. You were going to make a bald joke. I felt it.
Not.
Is there any research on hair loss? No, answer his question. Sorry.
I think that probably, the biggest thing is the stuff we don't know. It's funny because it's like we've made a lot of hay in recent weeks out of, I think I said this on your show last week, here's a study of lizard spit. If that's how we got Ozempic. It's like you don't know when you're starting where it's going to go or where the next monster breakthrough is going to be. So I don't know. I would say that probably, the most bang for the buck that we see these days are either going to be on huge issues that affect so many people we need to tackle them, or where things are so bad that any progress would be great. So, recent news that had given me hope that I'm worried about, there were some really interesting studies with mRNA vaccines that attack pancreatic cancer, for which we have nothing for the most part, and anything would be amazing. Or you could let's look at GLP-1 drugs, something like obesity, Alzheimer's, where so many people have it, we don't want to lose momentum. So I think it's in those areas. It's probably going to be a novel therapies for bad stuff, or for huge things we just didn't see coming. Both of those will probably be lost if just the research endeavor winds down.
I just have one more quick question. Oh, go ahead, Cass.
So there's not a lot of good evidence yet. And I would say also, part of this is where's your community? If you're
she's in Texas,
the Amish community in Texas, then yeah.
She's an Amish
woman. They're not going to get anywhere
in Texas.
I think it's the kind of question you can only ask your doctor. I mean, I imagine they could probably check for titers, but for the most part, measles immunity is lifelong and works pretty well.
Eric, did they have vaccines when you were a little boy?
I think, they came out with smallpox.
They came out with smallpox when he was young.
He was
That's
a youth, right.
Did you get...
he was part of the Ben Franklin experiment.
He was. That's right. And he signed the something. My question was, I was home last week visiting my dad, who it seems like, who's my dad's favorite guest?
Guess not me, actually.
Definitely not.
Yeah, I know.
He likes Eric. He likes Eric and doesn't like when I speak. No, but he's one of the people I've said Aaron says.
I'm sure he heard it too many times.
Yeah, lots of people. Yeah, I'm going to work on that. All right, well, he
doesn't like you.
And he doesn't like me. He loves Eric. He's 80 and he's got immune deficiency. I don't know what he has. But he's on a drug that he says...
This is every health story from Pete, by the way. We'll be lucky if there'll be a noun in it, but go ahead.
The lung disease and the drug. Point is, it gets delivered, and he kept telling me, this costs $24,000. The truth, but it seems to be that without this drug, he'd be in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
And the drug is amazing.
Yep.
But it costs $20,000. And then I talked to another person, a member of our community, I won't say her name, but she's also talked about this drug that's changed her life and made it a lot more comfortable, but it costs $10,000 a dose or something. So my question to you is, we have these seemingly amazing drugs, and some insurance will pay for them, and many of us it won't. But why the question is, why are they so much? Is the pharmaceutical companies, because it's easy to demonize the pharmaceutical companies, but there is costs with research and, so my question is about these amazing drugs that do amazing things but cost more money than
they all start that way. See, this is part of where everyone's to blame a little bit.
Everyone is to blame.
So let's start. The pharmaceutical companies are sort of, their blame is that, they're charging an unbelievably exorbitant amount of money longer than they have to. I mean, even if you want to make the argument like, look, research costs a fortune, they got to recoup their investment. If you want to make that argument, then okay, when you've made your investment back, let's talk about how we can lower the price. No, that doesn't happen. I think a lot of the GLP-1 drugs at the moment, they cost way too much. I'm not dying on this hill, though, because they're not going to cost this much forever. And when they go off patent or when there's more competition, they will become far cheaper. And they'll probably become oral. And so I'm playing a long game. I want this to be amazing, and eventually it will become cheaper. Where Americans are a problem is that 6 years from now, let's say, when Ozempic or something else is now totally generic, they won't take it. They'll want the newest one, which is this much better and still cost thousands of dollars. And I'd be like, well, come on. Like, if you want to pay way more money for the one that's this much better, feel free. But I think most people should be on that one over there, which costs like next to nothing.
Right.
But we don't do that. It's like if there's your dad is like right now, like, oh my God, this therapy is amazing. If in 10 years though, there's a better one, this much better, and it still costs $15,000, he and his doctor will probably want that one, as opposed to saying, but I could take. But this
they
one
probably won't get it
that's benefited me forever and now only costs $500. And we have to get off that train. We have to be willing to say, okay, like we'll pay for miracles when they occur, and they do. They absolutely happen, and we should pay for miracles. They should cost a fortune. I'm fine with it, but everything isn't a miracle, and we should not be paying that much through the nose for stuff that doesn't really make that much of a difference.
Christian Finnegan. Oh, look at you, Christian Finnegan. Who will join us tomorrow? Is that mic on? I don't know. Come up here and take this so you're on mic.
Yes. It does exist. It's just not legal. Well, it is legal right now in Switzerland and a couple other countries, and it is, but it's like in Washington State.
We're talking about the pill or physician-assisted suicide.
Both.
For people who are only for people who are terminal.
Like in Switzerland, well, that's the thing. In Switzerland, it's looser, and so it's somewhat controversial, not nearly as popular as people might think. But the pill does. There are ways to commit suicide. I hate even saying this out loud. Yeah. No. No, of course, suicide's always an upper. Right? Yes. So this is where I would say, instead, I'd rather focus on we should create a world where people don't wind up in that situation. Like, no. But it's like, but this is where it's like, this is a solvable problem. Other countries do a much better job of not letting people the story of Gene Hackman, like a couple weeks ago is, but again, that is a preventable problem in a world where we actually would set up a long-term care system or know, as people age, that they might need check-in, and we'd actually pay for human beings to go do visits instead of wasting $5 trillion on medical things that have this much of a difference. Paying a human being to go out to someone's house is huge. It makes a huge difference and costs much less. But we don't pay for that stuff. We have a system that only wants to pay for technology and stuff that costs millions. But we could, that's what I do every day. There's no reason we can't have that system. We totally can afford that system. We just choose not to, but we could. I'd rather fight for that. This is one of those really hard questions. How many liters are you consuming? Really? I think you're probably okay. Yeah.
Holy shit. That was worth the trip for you. Yeah. By the way, if you go ahead.
There is a human being, I'm sure, who's drinking too much Diet Mountain Dew, but that's not it.
Well, that's, by the way, would you put that up there as most controversial hills people die on? Not Diet Mountain Dew, but diet soda.
I wrote an article about artificial sweeteners and basically ended with I would absolutely rather give my kids diet soda than full sugar soda because added sugar stuff. And people from my university wrote to the New York Times and letters to the editor saying I should have my children taken away from me.
I wrote 5 of those letters, but that wasn't why.
I should have my license strip, and I swear to God, someone filed FOIA requests and took all my emails and was pouring through them to see if I was in the pocket of big soda. I mean, nothing was more angry. The only other article that got more anger than that one was when I wrote an article during COVID suggesting that people maybe just shouldn't be so angry all the time, and that made people angrier than anything else I've ever written.
Baba Boo. All right, we're out of time. I'm out of time. But Aaron is going to be here, and one of the things he loves. Aaron always tells me, he's like, one of my favorite things about being me is when people come up and ask me their question. So what I'd like to do is give out Aaron's number. Yep. I am so grateful that you're here. And will you be anything else if people want to corner you? You'll be here all day. You'll be part of the thing tonight. Okay. And more importantly, your wife will be there. Give it up for Aaron Carroll, everybody. All right. Thank you. We'll take about a 10-minute break. I think there's some drinks now. Take about a 10-minute break, and then we'll bring on the headliners. What? Breaking news. Breaking news. What's the breaking news? The CP, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau?
The best part is, of the 10 things I thought that could be, that wasn't even on my 10 list. So that's...
Yeah. Somehow we'll survive that. All right, that's it. That's the end of my conversation with Dr. Aaron Carroll. I don't know if that was a pleasurable listening experience or if it was annoying because the audience wasn't mic'd and I had to cut things out if it made sense or not. But there were a lot of great questions asked by several listeners. Aaron was really patient and thoughtful and generous with everybody, and I was so glad that he made it out there. And that is what I've got for you on today's episode of Stand Up. I'm out of time, but I will be back here tomorrow and hosting a hangout tomorrow night. And I cannot do any of it without you. This podcast is free, but it isn't cheap. So sign up for a paid subscription right now. You can always raise your subscription if you can afford more, if you're getting more out of it. I really appreciate it. Patreon.com/Pete Dominic. All right, we'll get back to playing new clips from John Carroll's new album as soon as I get them and organized with John. But go buy John's album right now, johncarroll.org. We'll do a whole interview with him about it, talking about it soon. And that's it. That's all I've got. I'm going to get this up for you to take it down. I mean, download it. You know what I mean. All right. Have a great day. Love you guys. Hang in there. Talk to you later.
Your